Este es un contenido de Uninorte Académico. Suscríbete, aprende y comparte.
Buenos días, sean muy bienvenidos todos a la 12ª edición de la Cátedra de Economía del Caribe, un espacio de diálogo y reflexión donde se examinan temas relevantes de la economía del Caribe colombiano y sus entornos geográficos. En esta 12ª edición de la cátedra contamos con la experta Karima Cortiz, quien disertará sobre las ciudades inteligentes, tecnología, datos y calidad de vida. Teniendo en cuenta esto, el programa es el siguiente. Primero, bienvenida a cargo de la decana de la División de Humanidades y Ciencias Sociales, Nancy Gómez Arrieta. Segundo, instalación y apertura a cargo del señor rector Adolfo Meisel Roca. Tercero, conferencia Smart City, 15-Minute Cities and the New Urban Proximity Perspective, City Love in an Urban Village Context. Cuarto, sesión de preguntas. Quinto, break. Sexto, papel de la discusión a cargo de Karima Cortiz con Cecilia López, moderado por el grupo estudiantil Ágora. Y séptimo, mención a Cecilia López Montaño. Primero, bienvenida a cargo de la decana de la División de Humanidades y Ciencias Sociales, Nancy Gómez Arrieta.
Buenos días. I just would like to honor our guests with a greeting in English. So welcome, Dr. Karima Cortin, to the Chair of the Caribbean Economics. It's so a pleasure to having you as the keynote speaker in this conference, and welcome everyone to this important gathering on Caribbean economics. For the School of Humanities and Social Science, reflecting on smart cities, technology, data, and quality of life is especially relevant to us in the schools and in general to our disciplines. Smart cities initiatives are often seen through a technological lens. However, they also intercept deeply with the human and social dimensions of urban life. As our cities adapt to technology-driven transformation, it becomes crucial to reflect on how these changes impact the quality of life, equity, privacy, and community. This discussion definitely encourages us to think about how data and technology can foster sustainable development that truly benefit all citizens, ensuring that human values remain at the heart of the progress. Through today's insight, I hope we all gain a deeper appreciation of humanities and social science and the role that plays in shaping ethical and inclusive foundation for our future cities. Having a conference on smart cities in Barranquilla is not just a coincidence. Since Barranquilla, urban's progress in infrastructure, technology, and environmental management positions Barranquilla as an interesting example to explore the future of smart cities in the Caribbean region. So welcome again. Thanks for coming to Universidad del Norte. Enjoy the conference.
Segundo, instalación y apertura a cargo del señor rector Adolfo Meisel Roca.
Good morning to everyone. I'm going to speak in Spanish. I'm going to say hello because my English is a bit rusty by now. But I would like to welcome all of you. And I would just mention that if we placed the Colombian Caribbean, which is the conference we are inaugurating today, it will be one of the largest economy in Latin America. We are 22% of the population of Colombia, which is 50 million. So we have a population that is larger than countries like Costa Rica, obviously El Salvador, Panama, more or less the same size as Cuba, and several other economies in Latin America. So this is an important issue. It is not just sort of local or regional interest. It has to be a national interest. Especialmente porque el Caribe colombiano está creciendo a unas tasas, ha estado históricamente creciendo a unas tasas por debajo del promedio. Hemos estado creciendo, la última vez que yo revisé eso, estábamos creciendo en el largo plazo. Colombia crece en el largo plazo al 2%, en términos de su PIB per cápita, que es un promedio malongo en términos internacionales, pero no pésimo. Pero nosotros estamos creciendo en el largo plazo al 1% en PIB per cápita. Eso sí nos pone en el grupo de peor desempeño en el mundo. Y uno no puede pretender que un país crezca dinámicamente cuando el 22%, una región que tiene el 22%, está creciendo así. Entonces, esto para enfatizar la relevancia para el futuro del crecimiento de Colombia, que es el tema de solucionar el problema del Caribe colombiano y yo diría que en general de su periferia. Que como ustedes saben, está compuesta por el Pacífico, el Caribe, la Amazonía y la Orinoquía, o sea, solo el centro. Y ahora, como está de moda hablar de las instituciones por el Premio Nobel de año de Economía, pues uno de los temas que se le ha criticado a ellos, yo creo, obviamente ellos han hecho un aporte importante, pero uno de los temas que han olvidado y que siempre dicen es que la geografía tiene un papel, de manera directa, el papel de la geografía es cero, que creo que es una posición un poco, pues, obviamente empíricamente equivocada al rompe. Pero yo alguna vez, y siempre lo repito, le oí a Douglas North en una conferencia que dijo, miren, le preguntaron sobre el crecimiento y dijo, miren, hay gente que dice que es la geografía, yo digo que son las instituciones. Pero yo sobreenfatizo las instituciones para que me pongan atención. Pero obviamente la respuesta, como en todo problema, es una combinación de ambas cosas. Y eso yo creo que me parece una posición sabia de alguien que ya se había ganado el premio Nobel y no tenía que, estaba un poco por encima de discusiones académicas menores. Y Colombia es un caso en que la geografía sí es muy importante en la distribución del desarrollo económico. No es accidental. Eso ha sido así en un trabajo que hicimos hace algunos años con el coautor, debe estar aquí, con Luis Armando, sí, que creo que es el de no reversión. No fue con Luis Armando, el de la no reversión. Laura, poco. Con alguien, cuyo nombre no me acuerdo en este momento. Hicimos un trabajo sobre la no reversión de la prosperidad económica en Colombia en el largo plazo. O sea, si uno coge desde comienzos del siglo XVI, la densidad de población es la variable digamos, de prosperidad que uno tiene antes de tener cálculo, aunque sea aproximado del PIB. En Colombia no hubo reversión de la prosperidad. La prosperidad estaba estaba y está relacionado con la altitud, sobre todo, porque en el trópico, obviamente eso no es lo único, porque ustedes saben que la geografía es mucho más complejo que una sola dimensión. No solo es la altitud, uno puede tener un peladero como es, por ejemplo, la zona de Ocaña, que es una altitud alta, pero eso parece la meseta castellana porque es muy árido. O puede tener la sabana de Bogotá a una altura similar. O puede tener el Valle del Cauca a 2.000 metros, mucha prosperidad. No, a 1.000 metros, perdón. 1.000 metros. Alrededor de 1.000, hay partes que son alrededor de 1.000. El Valle del Cauca y puede tener tierras como las de Santander, que no son las mejores tierras del país. Entonces, hay otras variables como la calidad de los suelos. Alguien ayer la universidad tiene atravesando la calle 10 hectáreas y me dijeron, y ahí no tienen vaca. Yo dije, ahí no puede haber ni una sola vaca, porque esas son antiguas calizas. O sea, la calidad de esa tierra es muy mala. Ahí se da una yuca así como precaria y nada más. Pero ni siquiera una vaca podría ir. La cogen a la vaca muerta ahí el calor. Porque, digamos, no son tierras, obviamente, ni siquiera para ganadería extensiva. Entonces, enfatizo eso porque mucho de esto tiene que ver con la geografía, no solo con las instituciones. Y lo relaciono con lo que decía ayer. Digamos, tenemos una de las políticas de desarrollo regional más importantes. Tiene que ser la inversión en capital humano. Cuando la gente tiene capital humano, puede tener movilidad. Y una de las cosas que define una nación es que hay movilidad en el mercado laboral. Entonces, eventualmente no vamos a tener una densidad de población muy alta en el Chocó, porque el Chocó no da para una densidad muy alta. Nunca va a haber en las zonas rurales del Caribe colombiano una alta densidad de población, porque no da, nunca ha habido una densidad de población alta. Pero si esa población tiene buen capital humano, se puede ir para las zonas más prósperas. Para las ciudades, termino con esto. Una de las cosas que vemos cuando hacemos historias familiares, en el curso que yo dicto de historia económica, y como proyecto final hacen la historia de su familia, la movilidad social está, entre otras variables, siempre por un movimiento del campo a la ciudad. Típicamente los abuelos, bisabuelos eran analfabetas, campesinos analfabetas. Luego los padres se mudan a la ciudad y los padres se dedican a diferencia, pequeño comercio. Y luego los hijos, la tercera generación, acceden a la universidad y son profesionales. Lo típico, por ejemplo, los inmigrantes que vienen, por ejemplo, de los Santanderes, montan una tienda, la primera generación, trabajan muchas horas, abren temprano, cierran tarde, abren el 31 de diciembre cuando todo el mundo se le acaba el hielo o cualquier cosa a las 11:30 de la noche. Bueno, ya ahora hay Rappi, pero antes no había Rappi. Estaba el santanderiano de la esquina vendiendo hielo a las 11:30 de la noche. La siguiente generación, profesionales, y ya, entonces, o venden la tierra a unos nuevos inmigrantes o la cierran. Entonces, la importancia de que el Caribe colombiano sea una región próspera no es un tema menor. Es un tema que tiene que ser estratégico, que debe estar dentro de un plan, entre los planes de desarrollo nacionales. Uno lee a veces los planes de desarrollo en Colombia y parece que fueran como para otro país. No hablan de los problemas fundamentales del país. Y eso incluso a nivel local. Uno lee los planes de desarrollo de Cartagena y no hablan, por ejemplo, de la pobreza. Alguna vez estudié muchos planes de desarrollo departamentales y municipales y me acuerdo que el plan de desarrollo de La Guajira. Entonces decía en el diagnóstico, la gobernación tiene 50 computadores. Ninguno tiene licencia, muchos tienen virus y todos están obsoletos. Y uno lee el plan de inversión, porque La Guajira, como tiene regalías, tiene muchos recursos. Y se imagina que van a decir, vamos a comprar 50 computadores nuevos con licencia, es lo obvio. Y sin embargo, invierten en todo tipo de cosas, menos en comprar los 50 computadores, que no valen mucho para la magnitud de la inversión que estaba haciendo en ese momento La Guajira. Entonces, un llamado a poner esto sobre el relieve. Nosotros en el Caribe hemos fallado, y aquí digo nosotros porque incluyo a los economistas, hemos fallado en colocar este problema como prioridad nacional. Los problemas del Caribe colombiano no son prioridad nacional. Hay otras regiones que son más efectivas. Los problemas de Antioquia son problemas nacionales. Los problemas de la costa son problemas de la costa. Pero eso tiene que ver con el mayor poder político, porque esto es un círculo vicioso. Las regiones atrasadas no tienen representación nacional fuerte, y cuando tienen representación nacional tampoco es que responda a lo que deberían responder. Entonces, por ejemplo, el Chocó no tiene senador en este momento. O sea que, y a veces los que llegan no son los mejores, lo que uno desearía. Entonces se vuelve un círculo vicioso que hay que romper. Y eso yo creo que se rompe cuando se hace una prioridad nacional, como ha sido en otros países. Ejemplo a estudiar, es un ejemplo, el caso del nordeste brasilero. El nordeste brasilero se establecieron en determinado momento de Sudene, la dirigió Celso Furtado, que ya era Celso Furtado, no era un economista aparecido. Ya era un economista importante, se volvió obviamente más importante, pero dirigió eso con mucho éxito. El caso del Mezzogiorno en Italia, también con una prioridad nacional, con enormes. El caso de la Unión Europea, con los fondos de convergencia. España es un ejemplo de eso. Cuando España entró a la Unión Europea, recibió fondos de convergencia para desarrollar las zonas más atrasadas de España, como Andalucía, que para los estándares europeos en ese momento era muy atrasado. Hoy uno va a Andalucía y no es una región en su infraestructura atrasada, ni siquiera dentro de los estándares europeos. Entonces, sí hay maneras de solucionar estos problemas, pero se necesita una voluntad nacional y regional. Porque aquí voy a decir que aquí hay una falencia no solo nacional, sino también regional, porque también a nivel regional no hay la priorización en lo que debe ser prioritario: combatir la pobreza, combatir la mala calidad de la educación, combatir la deficiencia en infraestructura básica como agua para todas las personas, que debe ser la prioridad de la inversión pública, porque como alguna vez le escuché a algún economista del desarrollo, la diferencia entre la miseria y la pobreza es que en la miseria uno no tiene agua. Y eso hay amplias zonas del Caribe nuestro que no tienen acceso a agua potable. Entonces, estoy muy complacido que inauguremos hoy el 12º encuentro de Economía del Caribe colombiano, porque es uno de los temas más importantes en la discusión sobre economía regional y urbana en Colombia. Muchísimas gracias.
Tercero, conferencia Smart City, 15 Million City and the New Urban Proximity Perspective.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to be here on behalf of the student group Agora. We would like to extend our gratitude to Profe Janes for the invite. Now, we're honored to have Karima Cornet with us today. She's a researcher at the Opening University in the Netherlands, has a double PhD degree in economics and geography, and her research interests focus on regional development, smart cities, and data analytics. Karima has been involved in various academic and research activities, including publications and conference activities. Karima Gordit has received the silver medal from the Japanese Regional Science Association, which is a prestigious honor in the field of regional science. She's currently a leader of the Department of Smart Cities at the Journeymus Academy of Data Science in the Netherlands. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much for the university. All of you, thank you for inviting me, sharing also our work, what we are doing with Peter ICAM all over the world. Today, I would like to illustrate a few things that we are doing. We are doing more, have much time. I don't have much time to go into detail. If you are interested, of course, we can share all the articles and the presentation, of course. Well, for today, the focus, you see different kinds of concepts. You see smart cities, the new urban proximity. So all these concepts are forward-looking. How to organize the future of our cities and to maximize the highest quality of life. Because that is the whole, the general aim of all the different. But today I would like to use the perspective of smart cities to give you a better understanding on how cities are performing and also how to measure the performance, the performance of smart cities, the performance of healthy cities, etc. So that's why the angle here is smart cities. But if you look at the definition of smart cities, you have different kinds of definitions. But I will come to that point in the next slide. But before my presentation, I have two questions to think about. So the first question is, how would you define a smart city, healthy city, intelligent city? And the question is also, if we have a better understanding on the performance of cities, and the question is also, what would you expect from a smart city? Is it the end goal? Is it just the mechanism to use it to achieve the different things that we would like to see in our cities for all of us? So these two questions, I would like to come back later on in the panel discussion and the interaction with you. So I would like to share with you things that we are doing, but here we also here to learn from you. And it's a learning process based on a very close proximity between ourselves. So for me and the team, based on our research, the question is also the definition. What is the smart city? For us, it's important, actionable, to create a very concrete activities that we can work and focus on to maximize the highest quality of life of people, all people in the city, all people in the country. So an actionable city where human beings combine the brains, the talent, and digital technology. So digital technology is broad, but there are different kinds of important elements that we can use from different perspectives to cope with different kinds of challenges, like health, climate change, you name it. There are different kinds of challenges, different kinds of strategies that we can use, actionable strategies that we can use to achieve that specific goal. And of course, the well-being. So we did a lot of research, and finally, based on the steps that we did, the concepts, we developed also a concept of city love. How can you measure love, the love for the city? Do we love the city? Do we love the country? Is it that specific place where we are living? The neighborhoods, the house, the street, etc. And it's not only focusing on just people, but different kinds of people. We have elderly people, we have young people, we have less mobile people. How to create that inclusiveness from the perspective of smart city, for instance. So this work, what we are doing, big team, Peter and I can presented part of the things that we are doing, but we're also working with many people. I'm happy and I feel very honored to work with people from all over the world. And so the characteristic of our work is also in the context of the new urban world. Peter presented yesterday the understanding of the new urban world. These are some characteristics that you can also find in the work of our colleagues. The new urban world, cities are growing in size, getting bigger and in numbers, like the work of Ed Glaser, Peter Taylor. cities are dominating rural areas like the work of Andres Rodriguez. You see also cities become a very complex network like the work of Michael Beatty. Our planet is also towards an urban connectivity, like the work of Zachary Neal. Everything is connected with everything. Is also related to the work of Professor Tobler, who passed away. And also what we see is, if you look at the system, different layers, different skills, different dimensions and elements perspectives, we see also different kinds of data flow, like the work of Laurie Chandler. So the city functions also as a multi-layer. We do not only focus on one data set, it's a combination to get a better picture of what is the city and what we really need. And what we see also the work of Carlos Moreno, so from Colombia, the founder of the 50-minute city. Cities are transforming into interconnected hubs, emphasizing on the proximity, well-being proximity, happy proximity, etc. What we see is the city of everything. You have a lot of things focusing on functions, living, working, a clubhouse of social capital, creativity. So there is a diversity, a multifunction system. What we also see is different kinds of space, of activities. So for us, it's a multifunctional container of different aspects where people are very important. Of course, there are also different kinds of challenges that I also mentioned, like digital technology, climate change. And the question is, can we use elements of smart cities, other concepts, the 50-minute cities, to cope with it, but also at the same time dealing with challenges, but also creating, as Peter mentioned, blessing in disguise, creating opportunities, even during a bad time. So I have different kinds of questions, of course, here. But important is city's ultimate destination. I have a statement here of Italo Calvino. And when a man rides a long time through wild regions, he feels the desire for a city. So the city is not only a physical space, it's a space for culture, people, different kinds of elements. Important to create a better understanding is the decomposition of the looking at different kinds of functions, the composition, and the different kinds of activities. So the different layers, national, regional, city, but also district level. District level is also important where people really are living and acting with each other. It's also important, the data perspective. So cities in an uncertain situation where data is very important. Not just one data set, but how to integrate it. Do we have to start with data, or is it important to create that better understanding? So context, conceptualization, and of course, how to implement it. So for us to have a better understanding, a better view of the city in the context of the new urban world, I have illustrated the different characteristics. What's really important is the decomposition, to create a clear understanding of what we are looking for. Why do we do this research? Is there a kind of alignment of what we want to see and to understand, but also the things, the indicators, the variables, the data that we are using, and to create a better clear understanding and alignment of the bigger picture. Important is also the big data idea, the different small scale data building. You have different kinds of units, how to build that. First, how to break it down to have a better understanding on different units, but also how to build it again in a way that we can understand it. And of course, the measurement of love, for instance, the well-being of people, happiness, very important element in this context. Oh. So what does it mean? How do we do that? I will show you a small movie to illustrate a kind of understanding how we approach the different aspects, like smart cities, 50-minute cities, city lab. So you can see it in this movie. It's a metaphor to create an understanding. So what you see here, a small movie of top scientists all over the world that are analyzing monuments all over the world. So what they do together, you have different scientists from different disciplines. So they blow up in a metaphor the monument, like the Taj Mahal, the Colosseum, etc. And what they do is they break it down into pieces, and each piece, the functionality and the activity of each unit, they analyze it in different ways, from different perspectives. And then, step by step, they're building again the elements to understand also the functionality and the system of the monument. So this is just a kind of a program. It's called Blowing Up History. I don't know if you have it here, but it's the same way that we are also doing our research. So what does it mean? So the lines, what you see here, are more, this is the whole system of a city, a region, etc. So the different scales are more the layers, as I mentioned. And the different colors is more the different perspectives, the human perspective, the ecological perspective, the mobility perspective. And then what we did was we broke it down into pieces from different perspectives to create a better understanding and to understand the function of each element in the city system. And then based on that, we build the things again. So deconstruction, reconstruction approach. So this is what we did for Amsterdam, for instance. Amsterdam, they really would like to have a kind of the highest maximum quality of life for all residents in Amsterdam. But for them was the question, what does it mean for us? How does it work? Where do we need to do the investments? What is then the interaction? How to create an efficiency system in our investments? So based on the different workshops, the different talks, information, documents, and data, the first start of data, we decompose it to create a better understanding of the XII for Amsterdam. What we could identify, for instance, the creative, innovative resource was important for them, talent, entrepreneurs. But that's from the angle wealth and creating potential. Another side was also important, for instance, ecological resilience, like environment quality. So all these elements, we decompose it again to make it more measurable. How to measure that? How can we monitor and see how the city of Amsterdam and the different districts are performing in a way to create an XXQ, the highest level? If we break it down into pieces, we could also build again the pieces to create this system for Amsterdam. So what you see here is the different layers, multi-layer, different dimensions, like, as I mentioned, smart urban mobility, ecological issues, social capital, etc. And then based on that, what the city of Amsterdam did was look at the interface for the investments to create that productivity or efficiency in the system. For instance, if they invest in smart urban mobility, what does it mean for ecological resilience? So the interfaces between the dimensions to create that efficiency in the system. So this is just an example for Amsterdam. But if you look at smart city definitions, there are a lot of definitions, a lot of names for smart city. So it does mean there is one definition. If you read articles, papers, documents on smart cities, it doesn't mean they measure the same and they have the same strategy. If you zoom in, you see that the measurements are in a different way of understanding. So these are just the characteristics. So these are just the characteristics that I would like to illustrate. If you look at all the definitions, you see, for instance, digital innovation, learning. So it's a combination of. If you see, for instance, some definitions are more focusing on the digital side, and other definitions are focusing more on the human perspective. And so if you look at papers on smart cities, it's very important to understand what is the approach, what is the perspective before taking things over without understanding the approach. What we did was to create better understanding was to put all the definitions together and then do a kind of analysis. And then what we found and identified 4 major perspectives for understanding the performance and of smart cities, intelligent cities. One of the perspectives, for instance, the innovation perspective, like the work of Nikos Komninos, a friend from Greece. Economic perspective, the work of Peter Nijkamp, Andrei Karagoulis, and others. What is also important is the monitoring perspective. Rudolf Giffinger, I think most of you know him, Rudolf Giffinger from Austria. And also the network perspective, like the work also from Peter Nijkamp and others. So what does it mean? It does not mean that one perspective eliminate or outperform another. All of them are equal important. if one of them is missing, then the house of smart cities collapse. So it's important to look at it from a balanced view, from different perspectives. So there are different definitions, as I mentioned. One of them is of Andrea Caraguli. He also looked at different definitions. He added also important element, the governance. Smart governance is very important. But as I mentioned, there are different things that are important in the elements. Smart governance is important. There's a combination of using data, digital approach, digital technology for better governance, how to transform or how to cascade the understanding of smart cities into different layers and operational level. The benefits, for instance, improve the service delivery, for instance, increase operational efficiency. Efficiency is very important. Jeff Ewings also mentioned yesterday about input-output. And we used also data investment analysis to create a better efficiency for the investments of different kinds of cities. But of course, if you have a better understanding of smart cities, which strategy is best for you? Which strategy fits? So even if you have a clear understanding of important components of smart city, but which strategy is important? How to implement things to use smart cities, to use 15-minute city to achieve the highest maximum quality of life. So this is just an example, a very good framework of Rudolf Gifinger, who could also illustrate how to perform, how to assess the performance of regions from different perspectives for smart cities. Well, he did a lot of research, and one of the important elements, he could identify various dimensions, 6 dimensions that could illustrate smart city performance, like smart economy, smart people, smart mobility. What he did was very good. These dimensions do not overlap each other. So if you see competitiveness, innovative spirit, they do not also explain smart people, they only explain smart economy. So there is no overlap between the dimensions, but the question is how to measure that. So he had also identified very clear measurements for each dimension and also the topics, but the question is, where's the data? How can we get the data? So what you see here are different ranking systems. All cities all over the world would like to be number 1 in smart cities. But if you zoom into these ranking systems and you look at the data and the indicators and variables that they're using, and also into the strategy reports, so what they are describing in their strategies are different than the things that they are using in the ranking systems to increase their position in the ranking system. So the things that are happening in reality doesn't mean it illustrates also in the ranking, let's say the ranking systems. So you have also to be very careful with ranking systems. Of course, also for Gifinger, for him, it was also the question, the challenge of big data. You have different kinds of data sets, structured data, unstructured data, data that is easy accessible or less accessible. So that's also a very big challenge. Of course, there are different kinds of definitions of big data, but we also use the definition of Rob Kitchen, who's also into the big data approach. So cities, like the work of Michael Beatty, like computers, you have different kinds of flows of information that you can see, but also or data that you cannot see, but you can create. We are working with different data scientists all over the world that can help us and helped us to do the work that we would like to do. Get access to the right data sets and combine them. So the work of Michael Beatty, cities are like computers, different kinds of flows on different kinds of skills and dimensions. And the question is how to use it in a way for research, managing things, but also for policy in an effective way. So this is just an illustration of Hegerstrand. Jeff Ewings mentioned that also yesterday, the time-space model. Hegerstrand was not interested really in people, but the behavior and decision. And why do people take a decision? If you ride a bike, and you have different ways. Why do you choose road X and not B, for instance? So this is just an example. Okay, so what's really important, this is the work of Thorsten Hegerstrand. He developed this time-space to create a better understanding on, to understand people's behavior in a particular context. This is a very good example. What you see here is time and space. This is a home of a family. So you have a mother and a father. This is time. So what they do, they wake up the child. The father goes to work. The mother takes the bike, brings the child to school, goes to work. After work, she goes doing shopping. And then later on, she picks the child, goes home again and again. Every time, based on time and space, they're making decisions. So important in the city system is to look at the behavior of people. Why do people are moving this way? Later on, I have a very good example of one of our research of the mobility of people by walking, taking a bike, based on quality of air. Are people aware of that? Are they also aware for their health? So this is another example of the shopping behavior in Amsterdam based on time and space. If you collect the different information, combining them with the characteristics of that area, you could also have this information for safety and how to create safety in a shopping mall, for instance. So if you look at, for instance, at 8 o'clock, there's nothing. But between 2 and 3, there's a high density of shopping behavior. So that creates also information for local policymakers to see how to manage safety in the area. For instance, at between 2 and 3, they could allocate there 5 policemen. At 6 o'clock, there is less density or less behavior. So that means in an efficient way, they could also use this information. Of course, there are different kinds of devices. You have, for instance, elderly house. All the patients there have a kind of watch, and the watch is monitoring the behavior of people and their needs and the motives, for instance, for washing, for eating, for etc. And based on that, you can provide also tailor-made services. Of course, how much data do you need? In our work, we never start with collecting data first. Because if we start collecting data first, there is many directions. So what we are doing in our work is first, what is then the conceptual framework? Developing a conceptual framework to create a better understanding why we are collecting data on different kinds of levels in the system that we would like to do things. Of course, there's a lot of, as I mentioned, devices. There's the confusion of world of big data, structured, unstructured, internal, external. A lot of data can be available, not always. Of course, important is that if you look at data transformation, it's important how to present this information. People are not interested in data. People are interested in real-time information. This is just an example of Fly Air. I was in South Africa. I was on board, but the person was explaining all kinds of rules and gave me this map. So I said, where to start? Where to start if something happened? We have to start here, there, and if you look, for instance, people from people from Arabia, they are reading it in a different way. If you look here, okay, she took the mic. Over there, you see a mother and a child with a mask. Thank you. Over here, for instance, so we are talking about different kinds of groups and people with different kinds of needs and understanding. So for instance, people from Saudi Arabia start reading like this. So that means if something happens, you have to get rid of the mask. And for us, we are reading like this. So there's a confusion. Yeah, it's real. So there is a confusion. There is a confusion of course, it's not about data. You have information, but how to position this information to provide a very clear the things that are happening. So that means it's not only presenting information, but what is the target group? What about people again? Again, this is, what was it? This is Ryanair, I think, the same story. So you see type A, type B, but there is no information, what kind of flight, what kind of model I'm in. So I don't know how to react on this. So how to structure this information in a way that you can provide the right information, the right constructions, and to, let's say, manage the situation, how to manage it. So how to structure the data in a way that we understand it and we can follow it. Oh, this is just an example. Again, there are different kinds of definitions of big data. As I mentioned, Rob Kitchen has a very clear definition, dynamic, detailed, interrelated data, low cost, high cost, connected. So we have also our own definition based on his definition, based on the urban piazza that I illustrated as an example for Amsterdam. These are very different questions, for instance, for each city on safety, information that is really needed, how many people are in that area, incidents. You can see here, for instance, this is Amsterdam, different places of Amsterdam. Okay. So you have World Trade Center, you have Museumplein, you have the Central Station. This is the work with Henk Scholte. He's the geoscience guru in Europe. I think you know him. Yeah, okay. So what you see here is mobile intensity. This is the whole day, the time, I mean. This is the whole week. And this is for the World Trade Center in Amsterdam. So what you see there, less houses, a lot of businesses. And for the city of Amsterdam, it was a question how to deal with safety, for instance, crowd management. So based on this information, for them, it's clear when something is needed. So people are coming in at 6 o'clock in that area. People go for lunch, yeah? And then at the end, they go home. Less people over there. We did it for the whole week, on Monday, Tuesday, and of course, on Saturday and Sunday, you don't find people over there. So with this information, they can prepare and do a lot of things for that area. This is the Central Station in Amsterdam. The same story, less density. This is the weekend, but during the week, people are coming in and out. This is people going home or make a transfer to another city. And of course, at 6 o'clock, it's also very important information. To create that efficiency in investments and allocating resources. Okay, again, another example about the shopping action based Higginson model, based time and space. This is the work with Henk Scholte and another colleague, like for Amsterdam, for instance, telecom data for traffic incident management. These are the speed plots. This is just some screenshots. We have a lot of information. So what we did was we looked at the behavior, the speed, and the situation before an accident, during an accident, and after the accident. Not only in that specific car, because they had sensors on the highway, but also on the behavior of other cars. And based on that, it's also important to create strategies to prevent accidents in on different highways in Amsterdam, for instance. So as I mentioned, the data, and also in combination with other data sets, these are just examples of indicators that we used. This is time and space, the time before, between, and during, and the speed, but also from others on the surroundings. So what we did, we thought, okay, we want to collect, or let's say first to have a very clear conceptual framework, and then look at data, the things that you would like to understand and bring together, how to do that. So we developed a dashboard for different cities in the context of sustainable development, XII, the highest quality of life in cities. So the dashboard helped us, of course, looking at the perspective, time, space, and geography, but also how to integrate different data together to illustrate, to give that bigger picture of the situation. This is just an example of Amsterdam again. So the piazza, what we did for Amsterdam, I took one of the elements, for instance, innovation and economic vitality. Let's say decomposition. What does it mean? Geographic concentration, innovation, and entrepreneurship are important elements to improve innovation and economic vitality. But for them, okay, what do you mean? Okay, we decompose it further. We developed Amsterdam dashboard. For instance, you see job creation, illustrates also research institutions, education. But what was really important here is the geographic concentration. For them, it was really important, an important element to have, let's say, an increasement in innovation. So geographic concentration was important, but they would like to have new breeding places. What does it mean? So old buildings, they transform them into creative hubs. So they invited creative people from the creative industry for less rent to allocate over there and to create a kind of innovation. But after a while, monitoring this in a dashboard, they didn't see improvement. And they asked us, how does it come? So what we did, we visited different breeding places in Amsterdam. So what we saw was a building. So people entered at 9 o'clock and left the building at 5 o'clock. So there was no space for interaction. So people did not communicate because there was no space. There was no opportunity. So finally, they created big restaurants, cafeterias in those buildings where people are interacting with each other from different industries in the creative, from different sectors in the creative industries. That's also what you see. Do you know Senseo? The coffee machine? Yeah? That is also developed based because in Eindhoven you had Philips employees communicating, interacting during the lunch break with people from Douwe Egberts, the coffee company in the Netherlands. And based on that informal setting, you see Senseo is a combination of interaction between different industries. So important is also not only provide a building, but also facilities, stimulate interaction. This is just for Sweden, an example for Sweden. Sweden asked, I was also living in Sweden, working there. They asked us to develop a dashboard for sustainable development for Stockholm, for instance. They said, okay, how should we do that? What does it mean? Again, decomposition into very important elements based on discussions, workshops. You see different elements, and then again, step by step, layer for layer, and then finding the data. But important is, if you have this skeleton in a process, we could identify the main dimensions, and we broke them down into measurements, like Rudolf Giffinger. But the question is, how do we know if we perform well? Because he can measure, he can monitor, analyze, but who said I'm the best? So target setting is very important, and time frame. And also, yesterday, you talked about royalties, incentives. You have fixed incentives, but important is also the variable incentives. Very important. It's not only stipulated in financial aspects, but also non-financial incentives are very important in this framework. So this is just an example how we started. So we did not build this in one day. It took a while to do that. So step-by-step decomposition approach, and each unit is very important to analyze it with different people from different disciplines, geographers, economists, data scientists that are working with us. So step by step to create a better understanding of the system. So these are just to illustrate the indicators and the data that we could collect based on this framework. Okay, so this is a total overview of the dashboard, just examples with meters and target settings and colors and incentives to illustrate why do we perform like this. Did we achieve 100% or is it 90%? Why 90? Why 80? So step by step, they could also go into the system, decomposition, understanding why we are doing this, why we are using this data. So this is Atacama. We were in Atacama. They did the same, but then for stars, how do stars are performing? How do they, the birth of stars, the death of stars, and the whole cycle of living of stars. So what you see here, you see different indicators based on a very particular system. Yeah, Patricio Arroca. So he was also with us. So a whole team, we went to the stars up to above 5,000 meters with oxygen, seeing all the telescopes over there. So what you see, this is the final dashboard. In one page, you see what is happening. It's a collaboration between more than 40 countries all over the world. And all of them understand this. They work with this. Each department has this in each country. And then they decompose it into different indicators, and each indicator has a target setting, and also the telescope who's measuring that particular variable. And it comes all together, but they have big rooms collecting all the data. They call it the supercomputer. So all the 40 telescopes, all of them are collecting data. Each telescope has a component of variables, so they do not measure the same. Every telescope has its own function and also focus point. And if they come together in the supercomputer room, and they transform it into the dashboard. So they communicate in the same way, speaking the same language based on the dashboard. Important here is further decomposition of the sub-city levels. So not only on country, region, city, but also within the city, districts, streets, to have a better understanding on the movements, the behavior, the decision of people. Finally, we need people, of course. And of course, the data, big combinations. I'll have now a few illustrations from the perspective of smart cities. Like the Corona time, it was very hard for all of us. But if you look at our governments, they presented a few indicators on the situation, like the data on death, infections, only on country level. Our government, every 3 days, they came with a new response. Nobody understood why. Full lockdown, half lockdown. You go to school, you stay at home, no work, go to work. It was a crazy situation. So we thought, let's use the elements of smart city as a supporting tool to create a better understanding for the situation for all of us. Not only policymakers, but for you, for me, for everybody. So very concrete questions for us as a starting point, because the Corona system was very complex. We had different kinds of skills. Europe, the Netherlands, regions, cities, but people didn't understand. For us, space-time dynamics, so the Corona curves, what does it mean? Look at infections, creating immunity, policy intervention, response. Another point was, can we get the data that we really need to respond on the situation? Like the availability of updated information, how to combine them to create that real-time situation. And also the spatial component is important. What is happening in Amsterdam doesn't happen in the south part, for instance. So how can we come up with very clear response for Amsterdam and another response for another city instead of introducing a full lockdown? So what we did, we developed a mind mapping. What you see in the middle is the Corona information system. We need an information on Corona, of course, but what does it mean? So the lines here are more questions, very specific related questions, not questions out of the blue, but they are related with each other. So the interaction, how do people interact with each other? So the mobility, working at home, online, or physically. Do people use protection, yes or no? So these are very related questions that help us to create a framework and find the data, but also the policy response. Does it help? Yes or no? So for us, it's important looking at the system on different skills, but also the functionality, the interaction, the context, specific context, and of course, the big data approach. So what you see here is our operational framework of our mind mapping. So first, mind mapping, and then we wanted to operize it, how to implement this. So everything is related with everything. So our government had just few indicators. So what we did was, of course, the geography components we implemented in our dashboard. Vaccination program came later because there was no vaccination program, but later on we could have the data when it started. And also the social interaction. How do people behave in a city? How do they go to work, central station, etc. This is just a screenshot of our dashboard. So what you see here, based on our concept, on our operational framework, you see the total cases in the Netherlands. You see the death, of course, the hospital, But that's it for the government that they had. But we added also, for instance, other indicators. What you see here, we had it for as total day. This is just a screenshot of February in that period of time. And then we have the week, but also today. What is happening in the Netherlands in one of the cities. But this is just on country level. So it's also connected to the risk level. So if a situation of today is going towards a serious situation, that means then you should come up with a response, with an effective one. So what we did was, in our dashboard, we said national information is not enough for us. So we also, as I mentioned, integrated the spatial component into this. So this is just an overview of the curves, the interaction between the different variables in the dashboard. So what we did was zoom in, for instance, in Limburg, the south part, what is happening over there, but also on the municipalities to have a better understanding on the COVID situation, corona situation in the Netherlands. So this is, again, an interaction, but important is also space-time. This is a period of time. And then you have different interactions. But our question was, what is the leading indicator? What is the lagging indicator? Who is causing what? And that is very, very difficult, especially in that period of time. We also could use mobility data. How do people move based on time and space in different municipalities? So we looked at retail, people going, buying things. That means they are meeting each other, they are talking. So that means people could affect each other. People are going to work or not to work. So what you see here is time. This was a period when we had a full lockdown in the Netherlands. So you see a change in the behavior of movement of people. People are going more to parks. But that creates also another problem because the parks getting more dense. A lot of people going to parks. So that was also not a very good solution. But the government didn't have this information. So this is just examples of the sub-regions in the Netherlands on working place, how people are moving. So if you have a better understanding how people are moving into the country, then you could respond in a better way, in an effective way for different regions and for others, well, not more strict. So what you see also in our dashboard, you can also make maps, interactive maps, in different time and situation, different indicators, or combine them. This is an interactive map. I don't know if it works here. Okay, yeah, it works. So what you see, based on the different data sets, you can illustrate the interaction between the different variables based on time and space. You can say, today I will avoid Amsterdam, for instance. Okay, this is what we are doing now to create a better understanding in the leading and lagging variables, to create a kind of production function of safety, for instance. How can we do that? But it's very, very difficult to create a better understanding. So we are working on that with Umut Turk, John Ost, Marina, Peter and Hampton, and many, many, many others. Okay, so these are the things that you need, of course. You need different softwares to understand it. So what we also did, for instance, co-design, energy transition. What does it mean? If you tell people, this was for Rotterdam, are you involved in energy transition? They would say, what does it mean, energy transition? So for us, it was important to create a better understanding from policymakers, the municipality, and an interaction with people that are living over there. So to create a better understanding, decomposition again, these are the KPIs to measure, for instance, important elements in energy transition from the municipality side. So we had different departments focusing on energy transition with the digital twin. Are you familiar with the digital twin? No? Well, it's a tool that you can use to integrate important information in your conceptual framework to create a real-time situation. You can see what is really happening in the city, not only in the city, on district level. I have some slides to understand the performance for energy transition. So these are the indicators that are important for that transition. We use digital twin to create a twin of the city. based on the data to create a kind of reality. And what we did was, with GIS, that's also the digital twin, you could illustrate, visualize what is happening in this. And later on, what we did with residents, we interviewed them and asked them, do you understand the policymakers? Are you understanding what they do, the kinds of strategies they have for energy transition? So we used here, for instance, one of the tools, MAMCA, multi-actor, multi-alternatives. So people would like to choose. If we talk about energy transition, for them, do not talk about, how do you say it, theories, or say you have to be very, how do you say that? Very, very simple words, right? To create an understanding. So people from the municipality and people that are living there do not communicate. They don't trust each other, so they don't want to work. To make energy transition successful, you need, of course, interaction. So this is the data behind it. So it's a lot of data, but we did not start with this. We started first with the composition of the conceptual framework. And of course, you create also scenarios in the digital twin. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's a partnership in planning. So policymakers and people have to work together based on the quadruple helix. I think you are familiar with this. So it's an interaction, collaboration between the government, scientists, citizens, and of course the industries. So what we did was we developed, to create a better understanding communication, we developed this Diablo model. Are you familiar with the play Diablo? Yes. Okay. So for us to bring the balance in the communication between, of course, the citizens and business and policymakers, we used also ambassadors in the cities and neighborhoods to create a balance in the Diablo model for energy transition before starting collecting the data. Okay, so this is just screenshots of the digital twin. So you have a lot of information and on the buildings, and not on city level, not on district, very individual buildings. You know everything about energy labels of the buildings, the functions of the buildings, the streets, the trees. For instance, the year of the tree, what kind of tree, and the shadows, for instance. So it's very important to get all the data together to have a better picture on the energy situation, energy transition in the city. So it's not just the full district, but each house we have that kind of data. The activity, is it a living environment? Is it a business? What is the function, etc. So this is just to give you an illustration. So we could also calculate the investments for energy transition per house, looking at windows, shadows, trees, etc. Another illustration of the 15-minute city. This is a very tough discussion between Carlos Moreno and Peter Nijkamp about the 15-minute city. So for him, it's not about the 15 minutes. 15-minute city concept is more a metaphor, a kind of supporting tool to think about how to make life better for people. If you look at the Maslow model, the first needs, the second needs, how to make it accessible, how to bring people. What he did was, in Paris, you have a school with a lot of roads where all the cars are coming in. So what they did, he and Mrs. Delgado, so the mayor of Paris, they transformed the roads into a playground. So what you see is that children can play there. So parents are not allowed, and there is no chance anymore, to bring the child to school with a car. So what you see also for him in his conceptual framework, the 15-minute city, is to create or let's say stimulate social network. So in that area, you see also elderly people are now coming from the house and sitting over there and have an interaction with the children, with the parents of the children. So it is a double benefit, the 15-minute city. So to make things accessible for all different kinds of people, not only healthy people, you have also people that, as I mentioned, elderly people, less mobile, less health, to create an opportunity. So the 15-minute city concept in the Netherlands, cycling is tradition. The average Dutch person have minimum 2 bikes. I have 2. So for us, it's more a healthy physical movement. It's for our health, not just a transportation, but it's a bigger picture for us. So what we did was for our this is very nice for you. I didn't see any bike here in Barranquilla. I don't know if I'm from the hotel here, so I didn't see any bike. Perhaps there are bikes here. I don't know. Perhaps you can react later on that. So what we did was we were very curious about the 50. We are also working with Carlos Moreno. So we thought how to create a situation to understand the behavior of people in the context of health awareness and also air pollution, the quality of air in the Netherlands. So we are working with the Sniffer Bike Initiative in Utrecht. What they do, they invited the citizens to put a sensor on their own bike. So the sensor is measuring every 10 seconds the movement of people on the bike per person. So this is a sensor. So the sensor contains different kinds of variables, measuring the air pollution and also the movements, the speed of people. But what we did, this is real-time data. So if I log in, I see people moving like this. Do you see this? Okay. So time, space, the behavior of people. So what we did was also using the space-time cylinder. For instance, before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, looking only at the behavior of people. For instance, the distance before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. We looked also here, what you see is the duration of people. So the behavior changed during a shock. So this is really important to see what is then the situation. Also taking into account the story of COVID. So we also looked at, for instance, the distance, the speed of it, during the week, in the weekend, before and after, and the distance. So that's one of the examples. So what we did here is also create a better life, better quality of life, making people happy. So you have also a question, people, if they don't like it in the area where they are living, the pressing question is always, should I stay or should I go? Yeah. So it's city-philia, city-phobia. What does it mean? It's a complex hate and love situation for your own city. And what we did was, it's also a metaphor for the spatial attraction of neighborhoods, of cities. Almost done. 5 minutes. Okay, I'm almost done. So building on the Thibaut model, Peter and Jeff already mentioned something about that. Illustrating, suggesting individuals vote by their feet. If you don't like your city, you are moving. So you're voting by your feet. So that's also the thing that we are doing here. So we thought, why do people like to go or to stay? Is it a kind of love and hate relationship? And if it's love or hate, can we measure that? Can we measure or can we produce love? So what we did in our research, very quick. So we did it for Sweden. So for Sweden, different cities in Sweden, I don't have much time. So we developed this conceptual framework for city love. So if you love someone, you love what you see, but also the inside of a person. So if we love our city, we love what we see, so the body of the city, but also the soul of the city. So step by step, by decomposition, the body and the physical elements, the soul is the culture, the life, the ambiance. So bring them together could also have an influence on the level of love that people have for the city. So this is just based on our research and analysis of Swedish cities, we could see both are significant, but we see that the soul is much stronger. Okay, in the Netherlands, the same we did for Rotterdam, for instance, have to be quick. And we said, okay, if you love the person, you look at the body and the soul, but the person has also a family. So the community is also very important in the city. Okay, so very important. I don't know if you have it here also in Colombia or in Barranquilla. Rotterdam is measuring the city on from different perspectives. You have safety, you have social, physical, and based on that, you have some themes and indicate how to measure that. So from different perspectives. What they do is important. They collect objective data, but objective data referring to policy implementation. On the other side, they would like also to know the perception of people. So the variables what they are collecting are also tested on the perception of people. So objective data and subjective data are equally gathered. So this is just an illustration of the distribution of love and the diversity of love, not only on city level, because if you ask a person, do you love your city? They always say, I love the area where I live, the district. So people love the district and illustrate the city. So we thought if you measure the city love on city level, we have to go deeper into the system on neighborhood and district level. So we use the combination. With one data set, you cannot illustrate the bigger picture, as I mentioned before. So we use OpenStreetMap results, data. So what you see here, walkability, historical surroundings illustrated here. This is the street attractiveness in Rotterdam. So based on all the data, this is just very quick, on the different dimensions, physical, social, safety. And of course, later on, the OpenStreetMap data, we could illustrate the City Love Index. And we created an index for Rotterdam on different skills, especially neighborhood and district level, but also looking at the different levels of city love in the districts. And you see a diversity. Of course, in one district, you have to look also at the characteristics. So profiling districts and cities is important in combination of the performance. Okay, I have to finish. So very important, how to produce love, looking at the body and soul and community. And okay. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos por la atención. Ahora vamos a abrir un pequeño espacio con Karima para que mis estudiantes y todo el público en especial que quiera hacerle una pregunta muy cortica, se la hagan y ella intentará darle desarrollo. Ella entiende un poquito de español, pueden hacerlo o tenemos también intérprete, entonces no hay ningún problema.
Bueno, entonces damos espacio a la sesión de preguntas.
Yeah. Hi. Okay, I have a question. When monitoring a smart city's performance through dashboards, what are some of the key metrics or data points that are prioritized? And how does this data influence decision-making at a city level?
Thank you very much. Very, very good question. The things that we have been doing and still doing is, of course, it's a supporting tool. And so the dashboard does not make any decision for you or for a policymaker, but it creates a better understanding. But also depends on the data that you are integrating in the dashboard. So the dashboard is illustrating a kind of reality of the situation. So it does not predict anything. It transforms the data, integrate different kinds of data, transform it to give you information for how to manage things.
I got a question too. How would changes in city infrastructure and the behavior of the people be controlled to maintain a smart cities status quo? Like, would the people be responsible for enforcing this order, like as a community, or would the governance be responsible for this, or both?
Thank you very much for your question too. So it's not an issue about controlling people. So I don't see anything about controlling people. I think what we have seen also from the concept of the 50-minute city, it's creating opportunities for people, all kind of people. So it's not about controlling people, but more creating a better accessibility to basic needs, create an infrastructure for all people, for a better life. As I mentioned, the example of Carlos Moreno, what they did in Paris, for instance, create a kind of accessibility also for elderly people that do not come outside the house. Create a park, create a space of a function that they could benefit from. Thank you very much.
Hello. So with the rise of smart cities and talking about big data, collecting it in a mass form, I'd like to ask, how do we balance the use of technology and data with the need of privacy with the people? We know big data is important for emerging cities, but also there's going to be a social side of it, which is, like I said, balancing it with what people want in terms of privacy and security for the city to grow and for themselves.
Also, very important question. It's not about what we have seen. As I illustrated, does this work? I hear that. Okay. What you see here in Rotterdam, they collecting objective data, monitoring how the policy is affecting in a positive way the people in different districts. So that's objective data. But at the same time, they're collecting the perception of people, how they think about the implementation of these policies and strategies. And what we see, if you look at the dynamic, I didn't show it here. If you look at the dynamic, you see a gap. What the policy is thinking that they are doing good doesn't mean it's good for the people. So based on the data, looking at the dynamics, not only monitoring, because if you put a few indicators and you're monitoring, just monitoring doesn't say anything. You have to look at what is the target setting, what would you like to achieve, and what is then the incentive in the whole system, like what I showed in Stockholm. So it's not only just collecting data, monitoring and analyzing, setting targets for whom. Elderly people have other needs than younger people. So inclusiveness is very important. Also safety for not only women, but safety for everybody. How can I feel safe in a city, my district? I have other needs than another person. And that is what Rotterdam is doing, not only controlling or monitoring or say, okay, with technology, we can give you information. Because if you look at Rotterdam, citizen participation is very important, as I illustrated for energy transition. So to get people involved, make a kind of strategy, policy together is more effective than saying you have to do this and this and this, and it doesn't work. Because in Rotterdam, people refused to talk to policymakers because they didn't trust them. They talked to me, they talked to Peter, to others, but they didn't want to talk. But based on our Diablo model in different workshops and meetings, we could bring them in a kind of way together. And then you see that people that are living over there, but that's not what I want. That's not what I need. I have bigger problems with my child at school. I have bigger problems with my bills. That's a different story, because that was really funny. During one of the workshops, one policymaker said, okay, we will bring this and this, and we will do this. And then someone stood up, but that's not what we want. See? So it's not only about monitoring. Citizen participation is very important, but also the level. Do you want to get them involved to share the information, or co-design, doing things together? Because finally, we have to do it, people.
Hi, my name is Eduardo. First, I really appreciate this presentation because smart cities are one of the most important topics in this dynamic world. But in Colombia, we have a different context. For example, I know that the cities have different dynamics, but in Barranquilla, we have a little problem. Our problem is that the employees are in different zones of the city. Sadly, in other small cities like Soledad, like Malambo, that is in the peripheric zones, and it's a big problem for the concept of 15-minute cities because the employee cannot to transport to this different company or their jobs. So how could we promote or create this promotion of this culture of the 15 minutes in this city? Because it's very complicated, as I mentioned, for our dynamic in the city, for the context, for the geographic different things that we have.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you very much. What I have illustrated, different cities, right? And the definition of smart cities or the approach of the 15-minute city is different. What you see in Amsterdam doesn't mean you see the same in Rotterdam or in Sweden. So the implementation, the context is different, but the process to reach the things using smart cities, 15-minute city, the process, the framework is the same, but the content. So people in Barranquilla have different needs, different perceptions than people in Amsterdam. But it is not, as I mentioned also in my slide, which strategy fits best in that context. So each strategy is different, but you have to have a strategy with the involvement of people. Because as policymaker, you can say you can do a lot of things and put a lot of things on paper, but it doesn't mean it works. And the 15-minute city is just a concept. It doesn't mean 15. In our work, we call it the X-minute city. Depends on the different needs of people. A doctor needs to be reachable in 5 minutes, not in 15 minutes, you see? At least from the perception what we have. So the implementation and interpretation, the content is different. But how to do it in Barranquilla, then I need to come back and talk to you all again. Sure. Okay. So now one more question.
Hi, I'm right here.
Where is it? Oh, hi. Okay.
Hi. Okay, in your slides, you said that you have made a study with about 12 or 13 countries, I heard, and one of them was Netherlands, of course. I want to ask if you know that Netherlands is a developed country, but as Colombia is a developing country, I want to know what developing countries you had into account at the moment of like realizing this study, and if there is a gap, because like Eduardo said, for example, in Barranquilla, the people are not that happy as in Netherlands, for example, because I think that the mobilization and that kind of stuff is more difficult in developing countries than in Netherlands. So I want to know if in your research and your results, is there a gap that respond a lot of questions that in developing countries people have?
Thank you. Very good question. If you look just at the definition of happiness in the Netherlands, developed countries is totally different than developing countries. The perception is also based on the network. It's totally different. In developing countries, the network is very strong. And if there's something happened, the network is also reacting differently than in the Netherlands. So the construction and understanding of the concept is different. And the implementation also. But as I mentioned, just in the Netherlands, and when we looked at happiness in the Netherlands, you see a difference between the south part and the north part. And people in the south part are feeling very unhappy, and we didn't understand why. We are living in the Netherlands, you have everything, etc. But if you decompose the concept, understanding how they measure happiness, they measure it in a different way. For instance, what we found out is that people are unhappy, and if you look at how they measure it, because of the house. You see? So the interpretation and the way they measure is not the thing that you would like to understand. To measure happiness, you have to take it from a different perspective than only looking at a house. And also the interaction between residents. So in the South, because of the history, the things that happened in during the mine times, etc., people are still have it generation on generation. In the other part of the Netherlands, we don't have it. So it's a way of, it's not only between developing and developed countries, it's also within a country of understanding of happiness. For instance, how do we make it tangible? So even in the Netherlands, there is a different way of approaching happiness. If you compare it between the different nations or countries, it's much complexer. Okay.
Bueno, ahora vamos a tomar un break. Los invito a acercarse a tomar un café y después vamos a regresar en 10 minutos con un panel. Las preguntas que quedaron sin responder las pueden guardar para el panel. Bueno, damos inicio a la segunda jornada del evento. A continuación vamos a tener el panel de discusión con Karima Cortit en compañía de Cecilia López. Las invitamos a pasar al frente. Este panel es moderado por el grupo estudiantil Ágora. Invitamos también a la decana Nancy Gómez, a pasar al frente.
Okay, welcome back. I hope you had a very nice coffee break, and the coffee in Colombia is great. So I will squeeze a little bit because I just gave a talk about city love. Okay, city love, that means interaction, proximity. So if you don't mind, I squeeze a little bit like this. Come next to you. Okay. So for this session, I'm happy to have you here with us. Thank you very much. And yesterday you already have been introduced, but I don't think you need any introduction, right? No. So thank you very much for coming. I'm happy to participate in this session. So this session is a table talk, a chit chat, also based on my presentation and the previous presentation. So also from the students, we prepared a few questions for you, and also reflecting back on the different concepts, the data, but also out-of-the-box questions, right? So we don't have to follow exactly the structure. So I would like to... Yeah, okay, so go on.
We'd like to encourage the students to interrupt anytime they want. If you want to ask individual question for any of the panelists, you can. Also, if you want to ask a more general question, you are able to. So let's start with the first question.
Okay, I put them also on the slides. So if someone can, the last slide. Okay. But at the beginning of my presentation, I already had two questions. What is your definition for smart cities?
Yes.
And how would you like to use smart cities for Colombia, for instance? And we prepared also a few questions to create a public for all. We prepared also the questions from the students, from all of us. And if we reflect, for instance, on this structure, right, the questions that we have. So the first question, I put it here also for you. If there are equal rights in urban public space for all, does the current practice require special user rules, for instance, regarding the use of urban space or transportation for specific target groups, if we look at children, women, you name it. So is there a specific rule or perception or tool that is needed, or something that we already have in Colombia, for instance, or an example from other cities all over the country or outside the country in the context of public space, space for everybody? No. Thank you.
Well,
first and last slide.
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to be in this panel. I think it's really a privilege for me to be in this panel with you. And I will start with the main topic, smart cities. Okay, the world is going to be finally, we don't know when and how, an urban world. But the big question is, how do we get there? And what do we do during the transition? And then here I want to put three variables that I didn't see explicitly in your presentation that I think are very, very important. The first one is the use of time. The second one is leisure. And the third one is time poverty. And that refers to the difference in the world between what women and men do in the society. In terms of use of time, this is a huge difference. 70% of the time of unpaid care, that is those activities that are done within the household, not recognized by economists as productive, are done in 70% more or less for women all over the world. it might be a little less in the developed world because you still have some of that unpaid care. Not only taking care of people, but the domestic world, the domestic activities is mainly done by women, even in the developed world. Maybe some part is assumed by the market and some part is assumed by the state, but still, and I live in the Netherlands, so I know that even there, the hard load on unpaid care is done by women. That means that the use of time is very different between men and women. So if women spend between 5 or 8 hours a day, as in Colombia, doing this unpaid care, anything additional, working, that is increasing an activity for women. All of you women are going to be in the labor market, but you still will have the responsibility of the care of the family, of cleaning the house and all that. If you consider that, you're very unequal. So anything additional that you have for women, and it's not the case of men, will develop poor poverty time. So men have 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours for rest. Women already have work committed to unpaid work. So anything additional they do, and if you have a transport system that won't work, you are losing time that you cannot have for leisure or even to sleep. So I think those variables that I can see in your presentation are key to recognize that men and women play different roles in the society.
I think that before we head to another question, I would like to understand and study in depth what is the role of the women in smart cities, as we are observing and analyzing the properties and strategies that we can implement to transform the perspective of a city. What is the key term of a woman? What does it mean to be a woman in this society?
This is my big fight, my dear friend. Okay. This is my big fight to get unpaid care out of the household. I launched the law. I was a senator, believe me or not. And I was the author of the law that measures unpaid care. But the idea was that unpaid care be recognized as a productive activity. The only way of doing it is getting it out of the household and be distributed between the state and the market. Believe me, feminists do not like what I say, but it's the only way to have men and women in more equal position, even in the smart city.
Okay. Very good. I think it's not the question, what is the role of women in smart cities? I think it's more a question, how can we use smart city to improve the, or let's say to create a kind of space to create equal positions. Are there elements in smart city? Can we use technology? Can we use data? And for what? So to say, okay, what is the role of women in smart city? There is no direction, there is no vision. I think we should create a kind of vision to create equal positions, not to create, but to improve. There is a basic ground or playing field. But how can we use elements of 50-minute city, of smart city, or we use the Higgerstrand model to pinpoint where our men are going in the morning, for instance, and women, and to see what is the role, what is the position, in which context. Are we talking about quality of life? Do we want to create equal opportunities for quality of life for women and for men? I think it's not even a point to pinpoint women and men, but for all. Because if we discuss women, you have healthy women, you have less mobile women. And the question is, how can we improve the line of equal positions, create opportunities for all women, for all men, for everybody?
Okay. Let me respond to that. I think men and women are not equal. I'm sorry. You cannot, you have to make a division. An applause of women. Come on, women. Do you think you have the same opportunities than men? No, you don't. Because for the last 100 years since Adam Smith decided that care is an emotional thing that should be done by women and shouldn't be paid. Women are in a weaker position in the society. What we need is to erase the idea that women were born to be caregivers. Women have to move to be the same that men, to have the same opportunities, and for that, unpaid care should be recognized as a productive activity, as something that the state and the market can provide. If we don't do that, you will not have neither the use of time, neither the access to free time, neither the possibility of not have time poverty as men. So this is, for me, a key element that we should fight for.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I think cultural context is very important, and I think this is something that is very related with Cecilia just said. We have a very different reality in everyday life, gender practice and politics in our particular context. That's why for us it's very important the social inclusion in terms of gender, in terms of disability, and name whatever other difference that we have. And something that women in the Caribbean and in general, I could say in most Latin American cities, is the right of the city to be in a safe city, in a safe space, which is something that I am very sure most of our female students all the time talk about. They want to feel safe in the city and have the same rights that men have in public spaces, because this is something that actually is not happening. So I think this is something that is very related, which is very particular in our Latin American context.
I don't think there is a country in the world where you really have equality between men and women. You know, the gender gap that is measured by Harvard University here, they say that in the world, you need 150 years to have equality between men and women. In Latin America, it's something like 56, 70 years. So you have, if you're talking about a smart city, which I think is a very interesting concept that we have to think about because it's the present and the future, we have to recognize that this inequality has to be solved because among other things, you need women to be in the labor market. This is a very interesting thing. In the latest study of the World Bank, they found men as one of the factors that retain the possibilities of women being equal. So now, finally, the economic dimension of gender inequality is being analyzed. So I think that the time has come to understand that for women, participate in the labor market and have economic contribution, even though now they are educated, it has to find a solution to unpaid care. So the use of time has to be a crucial variable.
I agree with you, but I think the essence is not to put it on fighting for equal rights. I think there is a frame, but it's also depending on culture and the interpretation. And for me, it's important not to fight for equal rights because they are clear. For me, it's important to understanding what are the positive and negative reinforcement regarding the behavior to create benefits and opportunities for equal rights. Because the framing of equal rights is clear for all of us. And only in practice, you do not see that. You see a diversity in different countries, in different cities. So it's more culture and interpretation. And what are the most important mechanisms or incentives that we could identify, develop together for stimulating or positive or negative, punish or reward a behavior towards equal positions, equal jobs, or whatever. And sorry, there was also a question of a student. Hello? Yes.
You need a
Mic?
microphone.
Shall I come to you? Will you come to me? No, I cannot hear you very well. Yeah.
No, meanwhile, I will say that I agree with you about cultural differences. But in all cultures, raising the kids, cleaning the house, taking care of the sick people are responsible, seen as a women's responsible. If you don't change that, you're not going to the basic issues that will make women in a different position than men.
Well, thank you for giving me the option of talking to you, asking my question. So my question was specifically to a thing that Ms. Cecilia said about the unpaid care of women. And is that what could be the impacts in the society of erasing that unpaid care? What options do we have to change that, or what alternatives we have?
Me está preguntando cuáles son las opciones. Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to do is to show economists through a equilibrium model, that's the language that economists accept, that if you take that unpaid care and you give it all to the state, the economy will fail because you have to pay it with taxes. So these care systems are not going to work. We're talking about 20% of GDP. That's the value of unpaid care in Colombia, and in Latin America it's more or less like that. In Europe could be 15 or 20%. Okay, so what you need, you cannot move it to a system by the state because you will have to pay so many taxes. If you give it all to the market, the care will lower because you will have to pay for something that before was a subsidy by women. So we have to distribute between the state and the market. That's my job. And you have to leave a minimum. Not all the unpaid care will get out of the house. You have to make up your bed. You have to prepare your breakfast. Now that one, you can share it with the other members of the society. But what feminists say is that you have to distribute it all within the household. It's 20% of GDP. If we give it all to you men, you're going to be as inefficient as women are now in terms of productivity. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Another question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. I would like to share with the panel an idea I were sharing with my colleagues here. That is exactly, so I am Italian, therefore it's not exactly a country that has, I would say, an identity of equality between men and women. And 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, a right-wing party passed a law which became effective this year, saying that all people that are qualified as insufficient, not self-sufficient, and in a place, if these people stay in the house, so are not move in a which is called a residence, in the house there could be somebody who is declared being the person taking care of this person, and the government pay a wage to this person, men and women. And this has a double effect. First, is lowering the pressures on these residences, I would say these places in which they go, but at the same time help to emerge some unpaid work, help emerge some productivity that was basically hidden before. So I would say this is, in my opinion, for what I was understanding, a way to solve a problem, not going directly to the market. I would say there is an internal market, which is internal in the house. The person taking care can be the children, they can be the women, they can be the men, they can be whatever else. We have to sign a document saying who is the person taking care, and this person will get this money, get the pension on this money, so get everything. Difference from Colombia, Italy? The difference is, to my view, the big problem of informality. So I would say in Italy, we have informality, but not as this big point as you can have in Colombia. But anyway, there could be some places to explore. Said that, what can be useful, I would say, smart city to this problem is going to help the support of these people at home, which is the support. But very easy. So you have people at home, you have to go out, you would like to know where you can park your card. And therefore you can have an app knowing that if you have to go to the doctor with this person, you know that you can park at that point. You have to, I don't know, you are working outside, you want to put your washing machine, you have the app, a connection to put working machine. So I would say this is something that is, I mean, in Italian it's called domotica. I don't know how to translate it in other languages, but I would say there are some experiments that could work. And I would like exactly to share with you this concern, this thought, more of a concern, and understand what do you think about.
I have two opinions about that. The first one is that I think women have made a huge effort in the world to be educated. And what women need is to have economic autonomy, to be able to develop its career. And the second point is that I'm not sure that all women are natural caregivers. They should be. No, but I mean, there are some women that are not prepared, because this goes to another dimension of this issue. Your care is not recognized as an activity isolated or different from education and health. Care, no country in the world has care as an activity that has to be designed, controlled, financed in part by the government. So we need, now that after the COVID really made a history. COVID brought care as the most outstanding, the only activity that didn't stop during the pandemic. And is the activity that's going to grow because people are going to be old, yeah? And people are going to need specialization in care. Not all women were born to be caregivers. Why did they study for? They want to be engineers. If they want to have that option, okay. But you cannot generalize and limit the policy for that. You need to give the opportunity to women to be autonomous. So care should be taken or either by the state or either at the market, at least partially, and leave the women the option. If they want to take care and they're going to pay her for that, wonderful. But that couldn't be a policy. That could be only an alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have that also in the Netherlands. We call it mantelzorg, right? Someone who's taking care of a person at home, who cannot work but stay at home, will be paid. But if you look at financial incentives or rewards, it's a short term. We did a lot of research on reward systems in different kinds of organizations, small, medium, multinationals. On a short term, it's a short-term strategy, it works. But on a long term, if you give a person, like a woman, she stays at home taking care of the child, you give her a compensation. Okay, it's just on a short term, but she's still at home. The idea of this approach, it's how to develop a person further into a network of different kinds of network. So that means you need another strategy. To give money, stay home, you are isolating a person. That means negative enforcement of women. But if you compensate or recognize her in a different way, not only money, it's another perspective. You create opportunities. And I would like to invite the ladies here, your perception. Can you share that with us? Yeah. But I mean, no. I mean the students. Students from here.
Let me say something to see if I can stimulate women. Listen, today, why do women are studying more than men? In Colombia, for example, you see the percentage of women in economics, for example, is increasing in a very significant way. Why they don't go to the labor market? Why in the world the participation of women in productive activity is much more smaller than men? Finally, the economy needs those women, but that's a side note. But then why do they don't go to work if they already control their fertility? something that women over different generations didn't do. Today, all of you women are controlling your fertility. Second, you are all setting. So what is the factor that is limiting that you go to the labor market and pay care? But care, and let me go to your basic idea before, care has to be developed as a sector. It's a concept and it's a sector that is in construction. It is not health. It is not education. It has links with health and education. What is care? And do everybody was born to be a caregiver? Women were born to be a caregiver? Not all of them. Many of them are forced to. So you have to create the sector, develop the concept, and make it a sector as important as health and education. Why care is not a productive sector? That's my big question.
It is. In the Netherlands, it doesn't matter if you're women. Yeah, in the Netherlands we have. Yeah.
What does the market do? Because people can pay for care. Remember, care is not only taking care of people. Your care is always cooking, cleaning the house, having the laundry, doing all that. You have to make it easier. The roads, for example, you have to make it easier. Yeah, but you have to.
Yeah, I also do that. But for me, is the question still not focusing on financial incentives. I would like also to invite Nancy, but also the students, female students. How would you approach it from today for tomorrow in 10 years? Do you want to be, let's say you decide to stay at home taking care of your children. Would you focus, would you appreciate a financial compensation, or would you like to have a kind of, I will not talk about compensation, respect in a way to create also opportunities for you from home if you choose to stay home. Also for the men, by the way, if you like to stay home. So female students, I would like also to invite you to share with me, with us, of course, the perception. Who would like to do that? Who would like to help me? Females? No, you're not a female. At least not today. At least not today. For female students, can she reply to Nancy?
No, yeah. Before listen, female student, I'm pretty sure they have a lot to say about this. The issue that we have here also is that we continue creating and reproducing the idea that care is only a task that women used to do and have to do, but it's not a kind of task that also men should do and have to do too. So in that sense, I think we have to deconstruct a little bit the idea of care, that care is not just something that women have to do in private space, but also that they do also in public space. I don't remember the name of the person that from Italy that you made the intervention. Yeah, men should also should be conscious that they can take care of children at home and do some task works at home, and it doesn't make any difference. So I like your example because you say that when a person is doing this kind of work in private space, they just register his name is the case, and the government pay. So it doesn't matter, or it's not a gender orientation, but it's something that is considered for the social benefit. It's not a benefit for women. So all the time we are thinking that this is more a female issue, and we just reduce to this sphere, and we don't consider this is a social issue for the benefit of society, not just women benefit. Yeah,
it's a matter of alternatives. Huh?
Sorry for the lack of time. We'll be able to hear another question, so we can be listening to it. So if anyone female wants to say something about their opinion, you can.
But I would like to At the same time, another question for men. So let's see who responds first. Are you conscious, men? Are you conscious of what does it mean unpaid care? Do you know what that means? Do you know? Okay, that's very important because I'm doing a research where men doesn't have an idea of what is unpaid care.
Really, but wait, please. Yeah, okay, female. Okay, yes, please. Can someone help her, please, with the mic? Okay.
Okay, first of all, I think that it's a really important matter. What are you talking about? And I support the idea of, I don't remember your name, so sorry, but I support a lot the idea that it's a social matter. I don't know how it's in Netherlands, but I seems awesome that there in Netherlands, like you can have like a profit or something like that for taking care of a person, and it not only involves the action of taking care of a person, that I mean that it's more than that, you know. You are sacrificing or something like that, your time, your opportunity to do another thing, another stuff. Me as a woman, I am studying economics, and in our career it's like kind of impressive, but there in my semester it were like 4 or 5 women, and it's kind of impressive that this is a career that it's focused on the development of a country, and why the women do not see that, you know. And I think that that's all.
Let me make a comment on that. The economics, I'm sorry, I'll give you the word.
I love her.
I know you do. No, just a small comment. The economic dimension of gender inequality has not been explored. Okay? Not feminist women. I consider very worried about women, but I differ from feminist movement in that they say the rights. The rights are perfect. Theoretically perfect. But then you have to work on the economic dimensions. But you know, economists are still thinking like Adam Smith 300 years ago, that care is feelings, love, and is women and should be unpaid.
Thank you, Cecile. So thank you very much. Very clear. In the Netherlands, if you have someone that needs care in the family, a father or mother is ill, you can that person can go to elderly house or can stay at home, and the government gives a budget for the hours for the care. It can be his daughter, his wife, whatever. Yeah, that's one thing. But to stimulate getting females involved in the society, for instance, one of the important incentives, if the female has a child, they give a kind of compensation, a budget for a kindergarten or where the child can go, and for those hours she can go for work, to do some work. You see, it's not giving her the money, but more a kind of incentive expressed or paid in a budget, but still she has time to go for an education program, for work, etc. And I like your what you are saying. Women are part of the system of development. So it's not the rules or the frame that's clear. It's more the culture, the society, and that needs to have a kind of swift, open mind approach. So I really like what you are saying. Thank you very much. And also in English, I'm very proud. So thank you very much.
So we'll be heading to the next question. Another student who wants to participate, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm a PhD student, and also I realized that at that level there are very few female women that are studying this. But what I wanted to ask you is, I was thinking that unintended consequence that a policy like that was made in Holland, what consequence can have in Colombia, for example? I think that we first we have to change our culture behavior, because what's happened is that here we are biased because the public and men here, they are interested in this topic and they have some level of education. But if we go to the regions or to different places where they couldn't realize that behavior, that they will see that instead of help women to get a support to take care, probably they could use that instead to having more childs or something like that. So yeah, I think that in addition of that financial policies, we have also to trying to improve our education or cultural or norms, social norms, because it's too difficult to think just in that solution. And I wonder, and I would like to ask you, what strategies do you think that could be helpful in order to transmit that message to women in rural areas, or how we could go there without being to get more how to say to transmit that message correctly.
I think there are two things, but she gave me the microphone, okay? I think we have two concepts here that now are changing very much. First, women and the situation of women is finally linked to the economic dimension of labor productivity and participation in the labor market. Now it's an issue because that the possibility for many countries to increase development rate of growth is having half of the population that are educated and are not having so many children to be able to work. That's one concept. But the other concept that is changing is care. Because of COVID, care became an issue, a very clear issue all over the world. And because of demographic issues, it's not only that people are getting older, but also that family are organizing in a different way. 18% or 20% of Colombia's family units are with one person, and it's all over the world. So those concepts are now related. That is a new dimension: women situation, care dimension, and economic dimension of women participating. So it's a new scenario that we have to see how can we approach it.
Thank you very much. Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Also a very good question, how to not only transfer the message, how to put things together, also for people in rural areas. Of course, there's a different way of interpretation. So what we have seen in India, for instance, people that cannot reach facilities or services like the 50 minutes concept to make things more accessible. Also programs, educating women, trying to get women more independent or depending also on the accessibility. So there are different kinds of, I don't have one message. It's also a process of developing together what is really needed over there. In India, they invited us also to participate in the programs, teaching them new methods, new ideas of research, for instance, for people that normally cannot have that. So there are different kinds of elements you can stimulate and create opportunities. It's more create accessibility to opportunities for those people.
I just want to add that before thinking what kind of message do you want to transmit to rural women, it's more important try to ask them what are the representations that they have and how do they understand care, because this is more participate approach rather than just impose other message, and it's more horizontal dialogue that you should have with rural women in a state just to impose this is what we consider is care, because if you just go with that kind of message or very hierarchical approach, you are going just to find resistance from that kind of women. So I am more on the side of participation to try to construct a more experience from the experience that women have about care.
And I think, Nancy, what, for instance, if I look back in the Netherlands, we did also research on ethnic entrepreneurs, not native, but ethnic entrepreneurs. If you look at the network of ethnic entrepreneurs, most of them are interacting together with ethnic, the same stories, same people. But if you see also the research of Robert Kloosterman from UvA, University of Amsterdam, etc., they have also looking into breakout strategies, not doing the same. So new groups interacting with each other, new concepts, new ideas. They call it the breaking out strategies. If you just use the same things, same people, you are circulating in the same system. If you would like to get out, you need to together find out a breakout strategy.
We are running out of time, so sorry. So we'll be missing two last questions.
She wants to say something about the smart city. There is something that you brought that is very interesting. If you want to have a smart city in our regions, in developing regions, you have to talk about the situation of the rural population. If you don't solve the gap between the urban and the rural, you are not going to have a smart city, because the migration, rural-urban migration, you know where they go, to the informal labor and to the demand of services for the city. So I think for a smart city, it's very important in developing world to consider the big gap between the rural and the urban population.
One more question, please.
Here. Hi. Now that we're talking about achieving all of these objectives that we are discussing about, I want to talk about the interaction between these concepts and the smart city. Do you think that these are causes between them or consequences in one another? Do you think a smart city is a consequence of achieving these objectives or a way to plan and to cause these smart cities, or do you think it's the other way around? What is your position on how do you feel about cause and consequences between these topics?
Okay, thank you. Very good question. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you look at the different definitions of smart cities, you have different names for smart cities. So all these concepts, smart cities, minute cities, they have a main goal as a supporting tool, a supporting mechanism. So if you say, I want to be a smart city, it's not the end goal. You are using elements to achieve a higher quality of life. That's also the idea behind 50-minute city, intelligence city, using big data analytics with digital technology, supporting people in their daily life, how to make it more comfortable in hospitals, daycares, etc. So all these different concepts have the same direction, same goal, but not as the main goal, but how can we use it to achieve the bigger picture? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your participation. We'll be ending this session. Thank you so much, Karima and Cecilia and Nancy. Thank you so much, and we'll be heading to the next.
Yeah, let's talk.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias por su participación. Realmente sus aportes han sido muy importantes para tener una nueva perspectiva de lo que puede ser el papel de la ciudad. Ahora damos paso a la mención de honor hacia Cecilia López Montaño. Invitamos al señor rector Adolfo Meisel Roca a dar unas palabras.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Vamos a dar unos minutos que está llegando aquí el decano, que está llegando un poco retrasado. No, mentira. Vamos que hay unos que están entrando algunas personas en este momento. Vamos a darle tiempo aquí a los que están ya entrando. Bueno, es un placer hacer esta distinción. Yo me voy a salir un poco del libreto, digamos, no voy a leer la hoja de vida de la doctora Cecilia, porque ya la hemos oído varias veces a lo largo de esta conferencia y ella es una persona ampliamente conocida por nosotros, los economistas, pero cuando estaban aquí en el conversatorio yo no estaba tan concentrado porque apunté algunas cosas que quiero mencionar aquí. Vamos a entregarle en el día de hoy la medalla de honor al mérito académico. Y quiero señalar una anécdota. Cecilia sabe qué sucedió. Cuando a mí me mandó Diana, perdón, mi asistente, la pieza para ver si la aprobaba, me puso, ¿está de acuerdo? Y me pareció que estaba bien y la envié a muchas personas invitándolo. Y miembros incluso del directivo aquí, algunos profesores, directivos de la universidad. Y muchos me contestaron, todos me contestaban, pero claro, por supuesto. Amílcar Acosta dijo, ¿dónde firmo? Y otros algunos consejeros me dijeron, pero ¿y esto lo aprueba el consejo directivo o el rector? Y yo, no, es un error. ¿No? Pero bueno, muy merecido fue digamos, la respuesta que recibí de todas las personas. Entonces, quiero señalar eso porque pues esto es un reconocimiento que ha sido ampliamente consensuado, aunque no fue la intención, pero fue lo que resultó y me di cuenta que esto es una cosa que cae muy bien entre no solo los economistas, sino entre muchas personas. Quiero destacar 6 cosas de Cecilia López, que creo que la definen. Uno, que quiero señalar, es una mujer, y eso me lo dijeron varios de los que comentaron cosas, muy trabajadora. Una mujer que ha trabajado durante muchísimos años. Y eso me parece que es, digamos, una cualidad muy importante, porque no todo el mundo tiene esa energía, ese entusiasmo, esa dedicación durante tantos años de trabajo. Y eso lo pongo como un ejemplo para las nuevas generaciones. Lo segundo, obviamente, es una mujer muy inteligente. Lo tercero, también es muy combativa. Lo sabemos. Eso la caracteriza. Cuarto, muy Caribe. También creo que la distingue que es una liberal de izquierda. Y en eso creo que es importante decirlo porque ni el liberalismo ni la izquierda por esta época parecen estar como de moda. Y ella ha sido siempre liberal, o sea, porque cree en los principios liberales de la democracia liberal, de un capitalismo, pero un capitalismo responsable con los más desvalidos. Por eso digo que es una liberal de izquierda. No sé si ella se define así, pero creo que eso refleja su preocupación siempre por las personas más protegidas de la sociedad. Y por último, quiero destacar algo que no debería ser, pero es una cualidad muy importante. Ella ha sido funcionaria pública durante muchísimos años, en muchas administraciones, y algunas de esas administraciones hasta cuestionadas por corrupción, por muchas cosas, pero nunca, a lo largo de esa larguísima historia, en entidades muy complicadas como el Seguro Social, que tenían al interior verdaderas mafias, nunca ha estado involucrada ni en un escándalo, ni su actuar ha sido cuestionado desde el punto de vista de la ética. Ha tenido muchísimas peleas por diferentes temas, pero nunca por temas y creo que eso y eso hay que reconocerlo, porque no es tan común, infortunadamente, en nuestro medio, que personas que durante tantos años estén en la administración pública, incluso muestra su inteligencia que no se enredó, porque hay gente que se enreda a veces con gente que es honesta y se enredan por falta de carácter, que eso no le falta a Cecilia, o por o por falta de, no sé, de visión, digamos, de dónde puede haber riesgos sin necesariamente ser personas deshonestas. Pero entonces eso me parece que es una cosa que es un motivo adicional para exaltarla, para ponerla como ejemplo. Porque yo creo que más allá de, digamos, ya personas, digamos, cuando todas las personas llegamos a cierta edad, pues ya como que los reconocimientos de muchas cosas no es tan importante. Pues sí, se agradecen y estoy seguro que ella está agradecida, pero yo creo que esto es más importante para mostrar para las otras personas, para la gente joven, mostrar que se puede ser un servidor público, que se puede ser una persona que está en la administración a pesar de que se ha deteriorado, porque es un proceso estructural que viene en Colombia, el deterioro de la calidad de la administración pública. Pues antes de ayer hablábamos con Gustavo Duncan, que como una de las hipótesis decía él es el aumento del tamaño del Estado. Porque antes cuando el Estado era pequeño, en Colombia el Estado fue como el 5% del PIB durante la mayor parte del siglo XX. Entonces, y no había tanta intervención del Estado con permisos y cosas que permitieran. Yo le decía a Gustavo que cuando yo era pequeño, para mí el gobernador del departamento de Bolívar, que vivía en Cartagena, era un señor con un carro grande y un chofer, carro grande y viejongo, y un hombre de saco y corbata muy respetable, que todo el mundo respetaba, porque era un profesional respetable, y nombraba de pronto un portero o algo, pero no había gran presupuesto ni nada de cosas. Era, por ejemplo, durante muchos años fue el doctor Badel, el doctor Badel, que era como decir, ¿no? de Corozal. Badel, no era Dimas era el historiador. No, doctor Badel era amigo del presidente Lleras, personal, era un abogado muy destacado, y andaba con su chofer y la gente lo respetaba porque era un hombre respetable, no andaba con guardaespaldas, la gente lo respetaba porque era una seria ejemplo para la sociedad. Eso realmente ha cambiado bastante. Ha cambiado bastante. Entonces, estoy muy complacido de que Cecilia podamos distinguirla con esta medalla de honor al mérito académico. Creo que es la primera que otorgo yo, y que sea a una economista barranquillera, me complace mucho. Entonces, Cecilia, bienvenida.
Universidad del Norte, Rectoría, resolución número 66 de noviembre 5 de 2014, por la cual se distingue a la economista Cecilia López Montaño con el otorgamiento de la Medalla de Honor al Mérito Académico. El rector de la Universidad del Norte, en uso de sus facultades estatutarias y reglamentarias, y considerando que la Medalla de Honor al Mérito Académico es una distinción que otorga la Universidad del Norte a través de la Rectoría, la cual busca galardonar a las personas que hayan hecho importantes aportes en este campo. Que Cecilia López Montaño es una destacada economista y columnista, quien posee más de 20 años de servicio público, ocupando cargos como jefe de la Unidad de Desarrollo del DNP, ministra de Medio Ambiente, ministra de Agricultura, directora nacional de Planeación y senadora de la República, entre otros. También ha ejercido como consultora de importantes organismos internacionales, tales como el Banco Mundial, el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo y la Organización Internacional del Trabajo, que la economista Cecilia López Montaño ha escrito numerosos artículos académicos especialmente sobre temas de economía y desarrollo, que por todo lo anterior, la Universidad del Norte ha decidido reconocer los méritos y aportes de la doctora López Montaño, otorgándole esta distinción. Resuelve. Artículo primero, otorgar a la economista Cecilia López Montaño la Medalla de Honor al Mérito Académico, en reconocimiento a su destacada trayectoria profesional y valiosos aportes en el campo de la economía. Artículo segundo, imponer esta medalla en el marco de la Semana de la Economía de la Universidad del Norte el 7 de noviembre de 2024, dado en Barranquilla los 5 días del mes de noviembre de 2024, firma Adolfo Meisel, rector.
Bueno, tengo que empezar por decir que lo recibo por muchas razones como un gran honor. La más importante es que esto me lo otorgue el rector de la Universidad del Norte, Adolfo Meisel, que no solamente es uno de los costeños más importantes que tiene la región, y no es para que compartamos halagos, es verdad, sino que es costeño. Y la razón por la cual me siento particularmente emocionada es porque a pesar de que llegué a Barranquilla cuando mi familia fue desplazada por la violencia y nací en Bogotá, siempre me he sentido barranquillera. Y me he sentido barranquillera porque aquí me eduqué. Mi educación básica la hice aquí, en los Andes. Pasé por muchos colegios, yo creo que no por mala, pero a mi papá todos le parecían chiquitos. Terminé el Junior High School en el Parish y después pasé a la enseñanza. Y de ahí me fui para los Andes. Y me casé y estudié casada y con hijos. No se los recomiendo. Pero el hecho de que se me reconozca como barranquillera realmente, Adolfo, me conmueve inmensamente porque yo sí le debo mucho a esta cultura costeña. La alegría, esta manera de vivir la vida, me ha ayudado muchísimo. He estado en 6 gobiernos. Nunca me han echado sino en el último. Pero, y me he tomado la vida con mucha frescura porque eso es muy costeño. Mi única frustración en la vida cuando me muera, que espero que no sea demasiado tarde, que no quiero vivir demasiado, ya he vivido suficiente. Pero mi hijo dice que tengo un pacto con el diablo. Pero mi única frustración es que nunca pude bailar todo lo que hubiera querido bailar. Y eso se lo debo a Barranquilla. Entonces, muchas de las, digamos, pocas cualidades que tengo vienen de ser costeña. Y la segunda razón por la cual me siento muy emocionada, y no me vas a creer, Adolfo, pero una de las razones es que el primer libro que publiqué después de la tesis, que fue el que tú mencionaste, el de la costa atlántica, la conclusión más importante que recuerdo, y creo que eso se lo debemos a Rodrigo Botero. Rodrigo Botero me dijo, Cecilia, recorre la costa. Terminé en un motel en Maicao, durmiendo en un motel en Maicao, no me van a creer. Yo que soy bastante puritana, casi me muero, pero no había opción. Y resulta que la intención de Rodrigo Botero yo creo que no era que yo estuviera a la costa, sino ese libro lo usó Alfonso López en la campaña. Y resulta que la conclusión más importante, y por eso me emociona tanto esta condecoración de la Universidad del Norte y de Adolfo, era que me dolía muchísimo que la costa no tuviera suficientes universidades, ¿sí? Y de un nivel reconocido a nivel nacional, porque eso llevaba a lo que me pasó a mí, a que después de estudiar me fuera uno a hacer la universidad en Bogotá o en Medellín y se quedaba ahí. Y me parecía que eso era una de las consecuencias más dramáticas que tenía la región y una de las grandes demandas. Hoy por eso, Adolfo, me llena de satisfacción ver lo que es la Universidad, ¿no? Está clasificada entre las mejores universidades del país. Yo creo que la costa no se da cuenta de lo que eso esfuerzo ha sido. Oírlos a ustedes hablar inglés me tiene en shock. ¿Por qué? porque tal vez le oí, no recuerdo a quién, no sé si tú mismo, Adolfo, o alguien más, decía que era inconcebible la poca participación histórica que han tenido los estudiantes costeños en las becas, en Colfuturo, por ejemplo, y que una de las limitaciones era la falta de hablar inglés. Esto es un mérito gigantesco de esta universidad y esto muestra el futuro que esta universidad y que ustedes, estudiantes que están hablando inglés fluently, ¿ah? No es cualquier inglés. Eso me parece que muestra un esfuerzo gigantesco. Y como no puedo terminar sin un reto, quiero hacerles una propuesta. ¿Puedo? Yo tengo una mezcla difícil de entender entre la política y la academia. Puede que no tenga publicaciones en las revistas indexadas, pero yo no sé cómo hacer. Ahí tengo una pendiente y no he podido. Ustedes después me cuentan cómo hace uno. Pero en fin. Pero esta mezcla sí me lleva a hacer propuestas distintas. Y ya la hice y empezó a tener acogida. Yo no creo que debamos seguir promoviendo candidatos presidenciales faltando 2 años. Hasta donde entiendo van 30 o 40 precandidatos presidenciales. Esos son 30 o 40 divisiones adicionales. Entonces, en un encuentro que estuve con Mauricio Cárdenas y con Juan Carlos Echeverri hace poco, en un encuentro con empresarios, les dije, mire, me da mucha pena, ustedes son precandidatos, pero yo creo que este no es el momento para eso y aquí viene mi propuesta. Mi propuesta es otra. ¿Por qué no empezamos a construir la agenda de Colombia para los próximos, no campaña presidencial, los próximos 25 años? La situación de Colombia es muy difícil. Tenemos millones de problemas. Claro que es una sociedad dinámica con cosas muy positivas, sí, pero es miércoles, somos el tercer país más desigual de América Latina, que es la más desigual junto con algunas zonas del África. ¿Sí? Tenemos una pobreza del 33% y Chile creo que está en 4 o 5%. Tenemos todo lo que ustedes quieran. Entonces, a eso súmele que estamos en una región muy emproblemada. El último estudio del Banco Mundial en que habla que hay 108 países atrapados, lo que se llama la trampa del ingreso medio, que no hay chance de que puedan pasar fácilmente a ser países desarrollados, y ahí estamos nosotros. Esos son todos los problemas. Hay que cambiar la forma del desarrollo, hay que poner otra vez la inteligencia, los sistemas modernos, a la tecnología. Hay que empezar a robarles a ustedes, a los países desarrollados, esos avances tecnológicos que necesitamos mientras desarrollamos nuestra propia capacidad de innovación. Entonces, la propuesta es la siguiente. Vamos a construir la agenda con todos los sectores, porque eso sí nos puede unir. Y mi invitación concreta, creo que la Universidad del Norte puede liderar la región Caribe para que aparezca esta región, ahora que está de moda, por razones que toca y que no toca, pero que sí son válidas, que es la razón de hacer de la descentralización una verdadera realidad. Hagamos que en esta propuesta, en esta agenda para los próximos 25 años, aparezca la región Caribe liderando esto, y esa es mi invitación a la Universidad del Norte. Y es una forma de retribuir semejante honor. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, damos cierre a la jornada. Muchísimas gracias por su asistencia y esperamos que esta jornada haya sido enriquecedora para todos ustedes.
Explora más contenidos de tu interés. No olvides suscribirte a nuestro canal.